The Injured Senior Podcast is here to help. Like it or not, the senior and elderly population is vulnerable to negligence committed by medical professionals, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, pharmaceutical and medical device companies, insurance companies, and everyday individuals and businesses. Your host, Steve Heisler, creator of the National Injured Senior Law Center, has been advocating for seniors' rights for over 30 years and is bringing you answers to your questions. This is the Injured Senior Podcast.
Well, hello to all in our injured senior, elderly, and aging population community. This is Steve Heisler, CEO and founder of the National Injured Senior Law Center, and you're tuned in to our latest edition of the Injured Senior Podcast. I am your host, and it is awfully great to be with you today. So the Injured Senior Podcast is a show dedicated to discussing legal and medical issues of vital importance to seniors, elderly, and the aging population, as well as their children, loved ones, and caregivers. Folks, we are sponsored by the National Injured Senior Law Center, the legal advocates for older individuals who've been injured by the negligence of others. To learn more, go to injuredseniorhotline.com. So, friends, I had the pleasure of interviewing Billie Mintz on episode 21 of this podcast back a couple months ago. I think it was a hot summer day when we had that interview. It was a fantastic interview, and we have Billie back again today to talk about abusive probate guardianships. For those of you who have not yet listened to the episode, Billie is a documentary filmmaker who exposed the filthiness of the professional guardianship industry in his film, The Guardians. Now, the film won awards and focused on how professional guardians, who, by the way, are not related to the seniors and elderly individuals they are attempting to get guardianship over, actually do so relatively easily and with no pushback from the probate courts. Billie's documentary spotlighted the Las Vegas professional guardianship community, and his efforts were instrumental in the criminal conviction of one particularly corrupt guardian, April Parks. Billie, welcome back to the show. How you doing today, my good friend?
Thank you, Steve. I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing a lot better than a lot of the people that I speak to in guardianship who are caught up in this terrible system.
Yeah, so for those who have not listened to our first episode and might not have seen your film, can you just give a brief definition of what a guardianship is?
Well, guardianship is, possibly a pretty necessary concept when somebody gets to a certain age in their life where they need help and they need somebody to look after their affairs, look after their health, and look after their finances. But what's happening is that that system is being abused by some very ruthless people that are extremely coordinated. It's a cabal of lawyers, judges, and healthcare workers that work together in order to speed up that process and take over somebody, sort of like the body snatchers, when they are completely capable of taking care of themselves. So there's, the answer is that's what guardianship is, but I also answered that's what guardianship abuse is. Right.
So what was it that April Parks, the ruthless guardian in your documentary, what is it that she did that landed her in jail?
Well, she, for years, was taking advantage of elderly people that didn't have any recourse. They didn't have any help. And when they did try to get help, they were turned away. And law enforcement would say this is a civil matter, and they just wouldn't listen. And she was robbing from people. So what ended up getting her in trouble was, these people, they do it for so long, they stop covering their tracks, and they think that they're invincible, and they do illegal stuff like overbilling, taking people without due process. She had, I think there in her indictment, there was 128 offenses that she was convicted for, and now is in jail for the next 40 years, recommended.
Now, isn't it kind of the norm? I don't know if it's the norm, but isn't it when you see abuse in guardianships, they usually deplete the bank accounts of the individuals that they're actually supposed to be protecting?
By the time they knock on your door, they already have everything of yours. It's already too late. So they have access to everything, from every single financial asset that you have, from your house to your stocks, and to your bank account. They have it all. They get rid of you. They put you in a nursing home. They drug you up. They show up the next day in a 24-foot truck. They empty everything out of your house, and within months, your house is sold.
So I think we should point out to our listeners that this is not family guardians. So in other words, if somebody gets sick or they're in hospice or they have Alzheimer's, and a child or a close relative takes over to help the individual, this mostly is a separate type of guardian. This is a professional guardian, correct?
Yeah, well, it's the professional and the public guardianship system that's under scrutiny right now. It's the same tactics. The corruption often starts in the public office, and then those government officials go out and practice on their own and teach others to do what they've done in the public system. So, and a lot of the times the families are involved. They're scrupulous family members that are, coerced, or they don't have to be coerced and brought into the fold. These for-profit professional guardians, they fare a lot better when they find, a sibling or somebody who's willing to comply with them. So, yeah, there's a difference. I mean, like I said at the beginning, there's a real need for guardianship for sure when we get to that age. But it's also being used as a conspiracy against people in order to, destroy them, take their money, and make the last years of their life completely miserable.
And I agree. There's definitely, guardianships that are very, very needed and are a good thing because they're helping people who obviously are infirm and are not able to take care of themselves. But public guardians are not family members, correct?
Yeah, well, there's public guardians, which is supposed to be for people who are indigent and don't have any money to pay a professional guardian. And that's why you have professional guardians who are for people who have the means to pay a guardian. But what we're finding is that the public guardians are in on the racket as well. And you always wonder, what is a public guardian doing with a multi-million-dollar estate? That is not what the public guardian is set up for. So yeah, they're both in on it. I don't get involved in like actual guardianship cases. There's no reason for me, because it's when a person needs a guardian. When I get involved is when I get a phone call from somebody that is in trouble because they have been incarcerated in a nursing home or a psych ward, and by a person that they don't know who has taken everything of them.
I understand that you get involved when someone's giving you a call from a psych ward or someone is being held against their will. What type of calls are you getting? I mean, I understand you've been inundated with emails and with communications from individuals who saw or heard of your documentary and are asking you for help. Is that correct?
Yeah, what will happen is that it's usually a family member or a friend who ends up watching my film and saying, "Hey, this is what my buddy's been talking about. It's a real thing," because you don't really believe the person. You got a friend of yours calling you and saying, "Oh my God, these people have taken over my life," and it just sounds strange and weird, and you don't understand it. But then you see my film, and then I usually get a call from a friend saying, "Hey, my friend needs help. This is what has happened." And just to be clear, these are people who have fallen under a system that is being abused. The system is set up to take care of people, but it's being abused by legal community, a cabal of legal people that are using these laws in order to literally legally kidnap people.
Right, and this includes lawyers, right? I mean, lawyers are a big part of this.
Yeah, the first thing you look at is the temporary guardianship, and you see who's the person that submitted this person into guardianship. And it's, in each county of any state, it's always the same players. It's always the same people. It's a crime. Well, I mean, that's questionable because it is actually legal, but it's an unethical legal act that is happening in broad daylight.
Right. Yeah. It's like right in broad daylight and right out on the street, and they're not doing anything really to try to hide it, correct?
Right, because this thing has gone on for about 40 years, and they used to just target people that didn't have relationships, elderly people, and you never heard from them again. And you wouldn't, because they don't have any siblings or any children. But with the baby boomer generation, you have a whole new type of less and less elderly people who don't have family members. And that's why we started hearing about it, because we hear about foul play from their children, from their adult children, who are saying, these people have taken my parents. But by now the system is so well oiled and so supported, and usually in a town where this is happening, or a county where this is happening, even if you go to another lawyer, that's part of the scam. You see that your parent has been taken by one lawyer, assisted by one lawyer, and then you go get another lawyer. But what you don't know is that other lawyer that you got, they're in on it as well. The entire economy, the entire legal economy, it's like a shadow economy, is being run by these people, and they need as food these elderly people. And now the kids are getting involved. That just racks up the legal fees, and it's a total smoke and mirror game.
Right. So when the kids get involved to try to regain their parents, to try to save their parents, and that they actually, the guardians, the individuals who have the guardianship, they're actually reaching into the bank account and taking money to defend against the child who's just wants their parents to be rid of the guardian, right?
Yeah, you got two people making money. You got the lawyer that the kids have hired, who's in on the scheme, and then you've got the guardian and their lawyers dipping into the same estate, or the parents' estate, and it's a win-win situation. It's a web,
right, for them.
It's a spider's web. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you tell our listeners maybe a story or two about some individuals who have contacted you, who have come under an abusive guardianship situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have to be vague, and I can't be totally specific, because these are people who are actively in trouble right now. I have one gentleman who I've been working with that is, his brother turned him in, and is working with guardians and lawyers in order to basically incarcerate his brother. And there's a lot of money at stake here. And, it's a process of people calling me and me helping people at what they need to do. And there's really not much they can do, because it's such a well-oiled system, and there's really no recourse. There's nobody to go to get them out of it. because it goes all the way up, and it's not being considered a criminal matter. It's a civil matter, and the only way to fight a civil matter is in the court that's perpetuating this. So to go back to what you had asked me, I get calls literally every week, and of people that are caught up in it, and it's just a process of listening to their story and helping them and advising them on what they need to do in order to at least try to fight back.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said. So you're right, it's a civil matter, but in the civil arena, there's two tracks. You've got the law track and the equity track. The law track, you actually the judges have to justify what they're doing as far as ruling on matters that come before them. But in the equity courts, that includes probate and guardianships. They really don't have to answer to anybody. There's no juries. There's no discovery. Basically, you appear before the judge, and the judge hears the evidence from public guardians or professional guardians who the judge has a relationship with. There's no jury trial. There's really no way to fight against the system when you do appear in probate court, because again, it's different than a court of law. It's a court of equity, and that's one of the biggest problems. One little tip for our listeners is that if that is happening to you and your loved one has come under temporary guardianship or permanent guardianship, it's really important to file an appeal. The appeal is so important because that's really one of your only remedies, is to try to appeal and try to get a judge in a higher court to overturn it.
To add to what you're saying, the sickest part of it all is there's a lot of people in these courtrooms, and when I would go up to them and ask them who they were, I would find a lot of them were real estate people, that like vultures, and they know the whole system. They know what's up, and they know that they can get these properties that these guardians are trying to unload. They get first dibs on it because they're there, and it's an entire system, and most of the time it's not documented.
It's a crime against humanity. I mean, they should be. I mean, anyone that would conspire to try to basically strip senior and elderly citizens of their basic rights and human rights, that they should be locked away, put in jail and locked away forever. Let me ask you this, Bill. Yeah, it's right. It's they're mafia in suits and ties. So
it's organized crime running through our court system.
Correct. So getting back to April Parks, is what she did, and I think I know what you're going to say, but is what she did, is it unusual in the professional guardian or public guardian industry?
I mean, that's hard for me to say. I would like to say no, that it's not the norm. But I only deal with these cases of corruption. So I don't know about any cases that are not corrupt because they wouldn't come to me. So I don't think it would be an honest answer to answer otherwise than the only cases that I deal with are corrupt cases. And again, I'm a filmmaker and a journalist. I just started being more of an advocate recently, but there are a lot of advocates who you have spoken to that have been doing this for a lot longer than I have. Maybe not have known about it as long as I have, because a lot of the people that I know who are advocating were victims of it, and I've been reporting on this before they became victims. But they are certainly way more in the weeds than I have been. Who could probably answer that better. But there are definitely guardians out there that are needed for sure. But I would say most of them are complicit because they know exactly what's going on and they choose to keep their heads buried in the sand.
Right. I understand that you're only seeing corrupt cases. Is it fair to say that this is going on around the country? So is it not just unique to one particular area like Las Vegas? Are you getting communications from people from all different parts of the country?
This is rampant. It's rampant. It is a cancer, and it's growing, and it's everywhere. There are definitely hot spots for sure, like Florida, Nevada, Arizona, New York, Pennsylvania. Those are, I think, I probably missed a couple, but those are the ones that I hear from most.
Yeah, actually, we had Sam Sugar, who is the president and founder of the Americans Against Abusive Probate Guardianships. We had him on a couple episodes ago, and he actually said that the hottest spot for abusive probate guardianships in the country is not Vegas, is not Florida, is not California or Arizona. It's Michigan. And I kind of like said, well, that's usually you would think that it would just be in retirement areas, but apparently it's not unique, or it's not something that shies away from any particular county in the country. So it's going on all over the country, and the number one spot, unfortunately, I believe he said, is Wayne. I don't know, somewhere in Michigan, I guess close to Detroit. So.
Oakland, I think it's Oakland Hills or something like that.
Yes, Oakland County, or right, Oakland Hills.
Oakland County.
That's horrible. So, Bill, what do you have coming up as far as your next docu-series or documentary? Are you doing anything to follow up with the Guardians?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely turned this into a very big passion of mine, dealing with people who are caught up in guardianship, and getting a little more into the weeds with it. I'm getting more involved with these cases at an earlier stage, where when it first happens, when people first get confronted by these criminals. And so I've been spending a lot of my time just getting into the weeds and helping people, telling people what they need to do, sometimes getting involved on their phone calls, listening in, helping them record, and helping them fight back. So it's become, I don't know if it's going to turn into a film project or a podcast. I just feel that I've been using my privilege of youth, my smarts against social injustice, because that's essentially why I make films, is because I'm very interested in social justice. And I'm kind of like transitioning where, I don't necessarily need to make the film to be involved in social justice. So I've just been getting involved. I'm starting to answer a lot of these phone calls, people calling me, and I sort of instruct them from the beginning of what they need to do in order for me to get involved. And that's been keeping me extremely busy.
That's great to hear. Have you had any contact with any of the seniors that you helped in the Guardian and in the Las Vegas situation?
Since I made the film, no. I mean, I was involved with them for about 4 years making the film, and sometimes I'll reach out, or they'll reach out and ask for a copy of the film again. I mean, they're much older now. Some have passed on since then, but it's a long time to spend 4 years with people when you're in the middle of their trauma and their PTSD. So that answers your question.
Yeah, Bill. On behalf of the injured senior and elderly community, we are very, very grateful for the work that you did. On behalf of the aging population and individuals who were literally held hostage by an abusive guardianship in the Las Vegas situation. And the movie did so many great things. It put April Parks behind bars, and I'm sure it has really made so many people in this country much more aware of the situation of abuse of guardianship. So, and hopefully there will be legislation passed, or there will be court decisions which will severely curtail the activities of, as you said, these mafia type organizations. What I think is potential racketeering. So, thank you so much. If somebody wants to reach out to you after listening to this, and they've got their own type of abusive guardianship situation, how do they do so, Bill?
I would say before anybody reaches out to me, I'll definitely give my contact, but I think the first thing you need to do is get your ducks in a row. Put a timeline together, like really organize yourself if you're going to involve other people. Organize yourself properly, put your timeline together, get all your evidence together in one place, do it on Google Drive. It's free. If you can do that, if you don't, you can ask me. But the first thing always when anybody contacts me is your evidence together? Because there's really not much I can do besides be a therapist, which I'm not. But yeah, if you want to reach out, it's simple to find me at my website, billiemintz.com. That's with an I-E, B-I-L-L-I-E, and Mintz as in M as in Mary, I-N as in Norman, T-Z as in zebra.com, and you can put info at the beginning of it, info@billiemintz.com. And if you live in a state that allows you to record calls, check to see if you're a one-party state or a two-party state. If you're in a one-party state, which is most of the United States except for 9 states, then start recording all of your calls. Get CapaCall Pro and record your calls. I know that might be difficult, but I'm here. I can help with all that. Just you gotta fight back with these people.
No, that's great advice. And on the former, the first thing you said, as far as creating a timeline, I'm an attorney, so I tell anyone who calls me, because I get calls too, as a result of this podcast regarding abusive guardianships. The first thing I tell them is make me a timeline. So usually it's very involved, and so help us to understand it quicker so we can get moving on it faster, right?
Yeah, and something else that's interesting that I've been thinking about, there are so many advocates out there. There are the Sam Sugars of the world, the Julie Belshis, the Carrie Kasems, and there are so many people who are fighting this. Yet, I'm pretty sure none of them do this for a living. I'm pretty sure all of them do this voluntarily, as myself. Yet all of the money that people spend go to, usually corrupt lawyers who are in on the system. And so there's this whole thing I've been thinking about as far as, besides like lawyers like yourself, but, most of the lawyers, if you are caught up in guardianship in a county, the chances are if guardianship is going on in your county, chances are you don't know if the lawyer you're hiring is in on it or not. And they really need, before you start spending your money on a lawyer, you really need to figure out, and I don't know how, and that's something, Steve, you and I could probably talk on a future episode, but is just really creating some sort of system, because as soon as like the Carrie Kasems and the Julie Belshis and the Sam Sugars start getting paid in this world, and I'm not advocating on behalf of like that you need to pay them, but there needs to be an equal balance, and there needs to be people like these people, advocates that actually it can be sustainable so that they can fight this thing. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I
think you're spot on, Bill. I think you're spot on. I know, Doc.
We got to fight this with money.
Yeah. Well, Sam Sugar is a doctor, so he created the AAPG because he himself was involved in an abusive guardianship situation involving a relative of his. So, yeah, the people that you mentioned, they're not doing it to make money. They're doing it to get justice for really the senior and elderly population of the United States, because anybody can get caught up in this, and before you know it, they're under guardianship. So
yeah, so
it's not
save your money before you hire a lawyer. reach out to the Sam Sugars of the world, and to other advocates who have been actively fighting this. When you speak to an advocate or you speak to a lawyer, ask them for references of other people they've helped. Start calling up those people. There are many groups online that you can find of other people who are in the same situation, and start speaking to them before you start spending money, because your money could probably go to other things in a system that you're probably not going to be able to get your loved one out of anyway. So that's the reality of it. But get yourself educated before you start trusting lawyers. Sorry, Steve, I don't mean to paint
that's awesome. Understood.
your industry as that. But most crimes that I deal with are led by lawyers. And you're a rare bird. I'm not saying all lawyers, but every adversary that I am up against in the work that I do is usually people in the legal community. And it's unfortunate. And I want to say that every single friend that I have in the world that helps me in these battles that I get myself involved are lawyers. So I don't want to leave that out, but they're rare.
Yeah. Well, hey, right in the guardianship industry and the lawyers that are involved with that, shame on them. The ones that are just perpetrating or perpetuating the situation and all the inhumane things that are happening. So I agree, and I appreciate it, Bill. How can people find you on social media?
BillieMintz.com. BillieMintz.com, and there's a contact link there.
Great. Thanks for coming on again, Bill. I owe you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, great. And of course, a senior, elderly, and aging population thanks you. We will be watching. Obviously, I talk to you pretty regularly, but I'm sure everyone will be watching to see what your next documentary is going to be. And I'm sure no matter what it's going to be about, it's going to be fantastic. You're a great filmmaker.
Thanks, man.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Talk soon. Thanks for what you're doing.
You got it. Injured senior and aging population community, thanks for listening to today's episode. I want to again thank Billie Mintz for appearing on the show today. If you love the Injured Senior podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you want to share your story about an abusive guardianship or about anything, or you have any suggestions or comments about our show, feel free to email me at steve@injuredseniorhotline.com, or just go to our website, injuredseniorpodcast.com, and leave us a message. I answer all emails, and I respond to all messages. You can also go to our website, a lot of really good articles, blogs, and all the podcast episodes. Go to www.injuredseniorpodcast.com. So until next time, my good friends, thanks a lot for listening to the show. I look forward to speaking with you next week with a whole new episode. Stay well, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Injured Senior Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate, subscribe, review, and share on Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us at injuredseniorpodcast.com and sign up for our newsletter. To find out more or to get help at any time, visit injuredseniorpodcast.com or call 855-622-6530. That's 855-622-6530.